So D'Angelo Russell has some suitors in free agency. 4 of them being the Jazz, the Magic, the T-Wolves, and the Pacers. 3 of those seem pretty possible, because the Pacers have a load of cap space. The Magic might have to make like 1 or 2 moves that I don't think would be that difficult to get the space. And the Jazz, after they decline Derek Favors' non-guaranteed option, they're going to be in play. The T-Wolves is a little weird because they are at the cap right now, and I don't think they have much in the way of tradable contracts. I don't think many teams are going to want Gorgie Dang or Andrew Wiggins. I think that one's a little tougher, but if Minnesota tried hard enough and exchanged enough picks, yeah, you might be able to do it. But anyway, looking at these 4 teams, start with the Orlando Magic. Now, of course, I want to say always the chance the Nets could match any offer, but given the trade the Nets just made, they might have a lot of ambitions this offseason that go beyond D'Angelo Russell. We're talking more like Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant level stuff. But there's a decent chance D'Lo ends up back here as well because, of course, they can go over the cap to re-sign him and all that stuff. So that is always, everything I say, that is, of course, applied as well. So we go to the Orlando Magic first. Makes sense. They've been desperate for a guard who can score. They've been desperate for shooting. And I know they have Markelle Fultz, but clearly D'Angelo Russell is the better asset between those two. And the chances of Markelle Fultz getting back to the level that he was before all the weird stuff with his jumper happened, pretty low at this point, if we can be honest. Doesn't mean he can't be a good player, but D'Lo is certainly better than that. And I think that team would have a lot of potential on offense. Now, the one thing with this is Vucevic's contract. I mean, if they chose to go for D'Lo, then they would need some things to break their way, whether that means it not requiring a max to sign him or Vucevic being willing to take mid-20s or something, or potentially both of them, on top of you'd probably have to get off of at least Mozgov's contract and maybe Fournier's as well. Fournier is actually good, so teams would probably want him. Mozgov is not good, so you might be forced to buy him out, and that's always a slippery slope because in the moment it sounds cool, and then you fast forward 3 years and it's like, oh, $4 million or whatever, just tied up to some guy who doesn't play. So that's all an interesting thing, and the Magic are going to have to answer some questions there, but I think it's possible that we could see D'Lo in Orlando with Vucevic, and at that point, that could be quite an offensive 1-2 punch, assuming Vucevic keeps on doing what he's doing. And then defensively, I mean, I think Vucevic has improved. Steve Clifford knows how to coach defense. The Magic don't make a lot of mistakes in terms of fouling, and they secure the defensive boards and all that. And you still have Jonathan Isaac, who I think can be a defensive anchor. So, yeah, I see the appeal for D'Angelo Russell for the Magic. Of course, Aaron Gordon, D'Lo, pick and rolls, D'Lo, Vucevic pick and rolls and pops could be really cool. D'Lo could throw some awesome passes to Isaac in transition, so I definitely see it there. The Jazz are desperate for anyone besides Donovan Mitchell who can score, kind of similar to the Magic, and D'Lo could certainly do that. I mean, Favors' money, his contract is completely non-guaranteed, and you have to assume they decline that. And then at that point, they'd be at $75 million in salary, and I don't think there's anybody here who they have to re-sign. It's a safe bet they're not keeping Ricky Rubio after they said he's not a priority. And that would be one of the better backcourts in the league. D'Lo and Donovan Mitchell, 2 guys who can play on the ball and off the ball. I guess it would be interesting to see who would actually be the primary ball handler in that situation. I think D'Lo is still a more natural point guard than Mitchell, but Mitchell has had the ball a lot ever since he got here, and you could argue D'Lo off the ball is maybe a little better just because he's a better shooter than Mitchell, but at the same time, if D'Lo can create more opportunities for Mitchell to actually get open shots, then his percentages will probably look better because this Jazz team has not had a guy like that. So regardless of who would actually have the ball more, I think that would definitely work. Defensively, you know the Jazz are going to hold up. And it should be said, Kyle Korver also has a bit of a non-guarantee, so the Jazz are going to have a solid amount of money to play with. And I guess if a starting lineup was D'Lo, Donovan Mitchell, Joe Ingles, maybe Crowder, hopefully a different guy who can really knock down shots at the 4, but who knows, and then Gobert, that's a basketball team, no doubt about it. A lot of the things I just said about the Jazz can apply to the Pacers. Oladipo and D'Lo could be really cool. Miles Turner's going to make them hold up defensively. D'Lo, Miles Turner, pick and rolls and pick and pops could be pretty awesome. And given how good this team was throughout the regular season, I think they'd be really good with D'Lo and Oladipo here. I know the lack of talent eventually caught up to them against the Celtics, but they did a lot of really good things to hold up without Oladipo, so that could be pretty fun. D'Lo in Indiana. And now we can mention the T-Wolves. I mean, I've seen this a lot on Twitter, and I mean, everything I said about potentially buying out Mozgov, same thing with Teague. Like, maybe it sounds okay in the moment, but then a couple years down the line, it doesn't seem like a big deal, but it actually is a big deal to just have that dead cap that you can't get rid of. I don't really see who's going to take Gorgie Jang. I mean, like, his contract is very similar to Evan Fournier, but like I said earlier, Evan Fournier is actually a good player. Whereas Gorgie, like, he's not horrible. He's a serviceable backup big, but, like, no one's going to pay $17 million for that. Unless you give him a draft pick or two. And the going rate to get off of a lot of money might be 2 draft picks based on what the Nets just did with Allen Crabbe. And I don't think the T-Wolves should really be in the business of trading picks. I mean, like, sorry Wolves fans, but the future for this team does not look that good. Mainly because of Andrew Wiggins and how much of a disappointment he is and how much money he's being paid. So I don't think this team should really be in the market of trading picks to get off of money. Unless you are just so confident that you are going to get D'Angelo Russell, then I do not think the Wolves should really entertain this. Unless they can somehow get off of all this money without giving up real assets, which I don't think is possible. Now, I guess I could mention Dario Saric for a second here, because he's probably the one asset on this team that is not a draft pick. Him and Okogie, or Okogie, I don't really know, I've heard it both ways. But I kind of feel like Saric is more valuable to the Wolves on the team than off of it, in the sense of trading him for stuff. So, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I can see the avenue in which they could get the money for D'Lo. I just think it's way too much of a risk. So, that's pretty much all I got on D'Lo's free agency. So, yeah.